Well, hello, and I'm glad you've joined us for this installment of Tools for Living devotional and mini sermons. This morning or today we are going to be in Joshua chapter 1. I'm starting a two-part message called Strong and Courageous Serving. Strong and Courageous Servanthood, actually. And we're reading about the call of Joshua. Here's where we're going to start. We're going to read chapter 1 of Joshua, verses 1 through 9. Here's how it goes. It came about after the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord, that the Lord spoke to Joshua the son of Nun, Moses' servant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now therefore arise, cross this Jordan, you and all this people, to the land which I am giving to them, to the sons of Israel. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I have given it to you, just as I spoke to Moses. From the wilderness of this Lebanon, even as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, as far as the great sea toward the setting of the sun, will be your territory. No man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I have been with Moses, I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Be strong and courageous, for you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate upon it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. This section of Joshua, the very beginning of the book, records Joshua's official call by God and his official assignment, his instruction. Boy, is it a big one. He's called upon to lead God's people to take the promised land. They've been waiting for this a long time. They've been in the wilderness for 40 years. They've come out of Egypt 40 years prior to this. And now it's time to go in to the land that was promised them. But there's a big problem. The land is occupied. Now that is a cause for concern, because the people in the land are known to be a great and mighty people. They are the Hittites and the Anakites and the Canaanites, evil peoples, people that the Lord has intended and determined to dispossess from the land and also judge, but his true purpose is simply to give the land to the Israelites. Years and years ago, he had made a promise to Abraham to give them this land. And now the time has come to do it. But like I said, it's not going to be easy, because these people are not planning on just giving it over to them and leaving. They're planning on staying. And the Israelites are more or less being forced to go in by God and take it. So there's going to be a conflict. There's going to be problems. There's going to be bloodshed. There's going to be war. There's going to be battles. And it's not going to be pretty. So we have this repeated urging for Joshua to be strong and courageous. Moses had already encouraged and commanded the people to be strong and courageous and go into the land, because God is going to give it to them. So, strong and courageous servanthood. What God was asking Joshua to do was a big thing. Now, what is the basis for this strong and courageous, this strength and courage that God is calling for? What gives him this strength and courage? Well, first of all, I want to point out some things that are necessary for us, but also was necessary for Joshua to have in order to have strength and courage. But let me first of all ask you this question: has God ever asked you to do something that wasn't too big for you? I mean, when God places a call on someone's life, I know this was the way it was me. It always seems way bigger than what we can do. He tends to call us to do things that require us to trust him, that require his help. And so let's take a quick look at what God has already done and what he is doing that should be cause for Joshua to be strong and courageous as he undertakes this mission. First of all, notice in verse 1, we learn that Joshua is Moses' servant. Now, if you do a study of the law, and every place you see where Joshua is mentioned prior to the book of Joshua, you'll discover him serving Moses. He is Moses' right-hand man. He has gotten tremendous training and preparation for Moses for this day. All right, God has seen to it that Joshua is prepared for what he's going to call you to do, and what he's going to call him to do. And he does that with us. Sometimes he gives us the call, and then he gives us the equipping, and then we go into action. In this case, God had already done the equipping, and now he's deploying Joshua into his assignment. But God's preparation is always an important part of serving God with strength and courage. Another thing I want to point out to you is this promise that God refers to, that he had promised to Abraham. Long ago, and you can read about this in Genesis 12 and following, God had promised this very land to Abraham. Now, the whole earth is God's. He can give any land he wants to anybody. It's his. It really isn't the Hittites. And in fact, your land isn't really yours. It's all God's. The whole earth is the Lord's. And he has chosen this land for his people. And he has covenanted with Abraham to give them this, to give Abraham's descendants this land. So now the time for that promise is to be fulfilled. Part of Joshua's strength and courage and confidence that this was going to be a successful mission comes from God's faithfulness to his covenant promises. A lot of those promises had already been fulfilled. This was the next one to be fulfilled. And because it was part of the covenant God had with Abraham, that gave strength and courage to Joshua that he's on the right course. He's not endeavoring into something that's of his own making. This is God's plan. And you see, for example, in verse 3, I am giving this land to the sons of Israel. Every place on which the sole of your foot treads, I have given it to you. That it's a statement of like it's already happened. I have already done it. I have given it to you. And so there's this promise that Joshua has. It's a covenant promise. Now there's a third thing I want to point out to you that is a basis for Joshua's strength and courage in serving God in this capacity. And that's the promise of his presence. Take a look at the beauty of verse 5. He says, no man will be able to stand before you all the days of your life. Just as I have been with Moses, so I will be with you. I will not fail you or forsake you. Then he starts into this barrage of commands to be strong and courageous. It is on the basis of God's presence being with him. Now this was a biggie. Joshua had seen what it looked like for God to be with Moses. And if I were Joshua, I would want God to assure that he was going to be with me in those same kinds of ways. It was that kind of thing that the Israelites saw result in the miracles that led to their deliverance from Egypt and their deliverance from the Red Sea and so on and so forth. They had seen God lead and provide and do miracles and all of this. God's presence was with Moses. God promised the same thing for Joshua. So there's three things that help us to serve God with strength and courage. I don't know if you're serving God right now. I hope you are in some capacity. But let me tell you what, the strength and courage to do whatever God may call you to do is predicated upon the fact that God has prepared you for this day. Everything from the past is always preparation for the present. Okay? God has prepared you. God has also made a promise. The next promise of the covenant is that the gospel will go to all the nations. That's the next promise of the Abrahamic covenant, that he will, through the descendants of Abraham, of which we are, he will bless all the nations of the earth. And every little piece and part of anything that God asks us to do has to do with reaching the ends of the earth. And so we know we are on a mission and destiny of success. There's not going to be failure here. And so we have the confidence, the assurance of that promise. Thirdly, we have the assurance of his presence. Even Jesus said to his disciples as he sent them out to the nations to preach the gospel, he said, "And lo, I will be with you always, even to the end of the age." And so upon these three things, we can serve God with confidence, assurance, strength, courage. We can do it. All we need to do is put our trust and faith in all that God's provided. Now, there's a couple more things God has provided, and we'll tackle that in the next message. But for now, thanks for joining me, and I want to remind you that God loves you. He has a plan for your life, and I want to encourage you to walk in it.